Welcome to my summary of learning for eci831 Social Media and Open Education. I'm Kirsten Hansen, and some of you have heard me and some may not have, but I decided to push myself at the last assignments and actually do a screencast. Not one of my favorite activities because it usually involves me doing it over and over, but again, this class has been about challenging ourselves, so I'm giving it a shot for the last assignment. So my path with ECNI 831 has been a little different than some other people in the class. I work with technology day to day. I spend a lot of time supporting instructors, dealing with technology, and I've actually previously held workshops myself on different kinds of tech. So I'm pretty familiar with social media and using technology and ed tech in my life. So for me, the path for learning has been a little bit different. It hasn't really been about the specific tools so much, but I certainly have learned a lot during the semester. So my learning path really starts with my blog, which has been a really good push for me to actually get this set up. I've had blogs off and on for various reasons, and I've blogged for other blogs, but I have never really gotten going with one myself. So this was really the push I needed to actually get my own site set up, and I'm self-hosting it, so I will be able to keep this running and keep using this as I move forward throughout my grad career and through my professional life. So I'm really looking forward to that chance to have a reason to blog and have a space to do that. And one of the parts of blogging that I really enjoy is community. So Richard Schwerer came and joined our ECNI 831 class and talked about online communities and how these develop and how it's important, and also how you deal with them and negotiate them. That's something that I really feel strongly. Anytime I've been involved in an online community, it has meant so much. And this class has really helped me to develop a new community of people who I really am glad that I know. Because, for one thing, I have switched my major. I have never before taken education classes. I'm a humanities major. So it's really great for me to actually meet other people in education so that I know more people. I know a few people already before I started the class, but now I'm knowing some more so that going forward into other classes, I'm going to know some people. I'm really excited about that part because to me, having a network of other learners is really important. And I also wanted to look at privacy and trust. It was something that Rick brought up, and it's definitely something that I feel is a big deal. We worry a lot, especially in teaching, about privacy. How our students are affected, how we're affected. In academia, it's a big deal. Where your information is stored, can somebody get at this information? So in an online community, it can be scary. These are people you may or may not know. And how do you open yourself up to them? I have some experience on this. I work as an online community manager as a fun job, and so I'm used to being fairly open online in different ways. But figuring out how to explain to someone why I do that, how I can do that, and how to do it safely is really important. I think that's one of the big literacies that students are really going to need to know moving forward, is how to be themselves on the internet without getting themselves into dangerous situations or setting themselves up for really big problems. Some things just should never go on the internet, and you really need to know how to deal with that. But you also need to know how to open yourself up enough that you can build a community, that you can actually be part of one, that you can learn to trust people, because our world is changing. Your colleagues may no longer work right beside you. More and more, I'm seeing jobs that may allow you to be somewhere completely different. You might not share an office, but you're still going to share a community. So you need to know how to get to know these people. And the bigger your community is, the more you're going to learn from them. Speaking of communities, I really found the Google Plus community to be a great asset and a really interesting place to share information. I've never used Google Plus before successfully. I've had an account and I have circles, but I've never really found it to work for me. It's not something that I was familiar with, and I never really put any effort into figuring out why I would bother. The community made sense. This works great. I like this community a lot better than Facebook because, to be honest, Facebook is my personal space. I have some colleagues on there, but they're all people who I know personally and who are okay seeing my craft projects and seeing, what I made for supper or the cookies I'm baking. And sometimes that's really just not the appropriate thing to be posting. So having a Google Plus community really worked as a way to share information, share links, but also to comment on it. That's one thing that unfortunately Twitter is fairly limited. There's only so much commentary you can make, and it's harder to come back to a conversation later on Twitter, but Google Plus makes that a little more possible. I am not always great at being perfectly timely because sometimes I really just want to put down my phone or get away from my pieces of technology, or I'm in a meeting or working on a project. So I really appreciated the Google Plus community as a way to share things, both what I find and see what other people are posting. So it was nice to see the conversations that developed and to get to know some people a little bit more in terms of their interests. The Blog Hub was the other space that really helped cement the community for me in terms of who I'm in this class with and what issues everybody's dealing with. Being as somebody who works in instructional design at a university, I know I'm not the typical EC&I student. I work with higher education, I work with adults, I work with profs, and I really have very little to do with anybody who is a teenager or younger. But those are our students. Those are going to be our students. So for me, it's really important to know what issues are coming up. What should we be preparing for? And see what other educators are dealing with. A lot of the people that I deal with in terms of instructors may or may not be particularly comfortable with technology, but it's really good to see what our students are expecting or might be expecting, what they might have encountered, what issues they're bringing to the table. So being able to talk with people who are teaching these future students has been really valuable to me. I honestly got so much out of that. And that was my entire reason for wanting to have my major be curriculum and instruction, is I really want that exposure. I think we should all be talking to each other as people involved in education and not making the split between higher education and K-12. So I really love that this course has been a bit of a blend, that Alec worked really hard to have us be able to all talk in the same space about similar issues, but how we deal with them and how it works for us has been different. One of the other aspects that I really loved about the course was CogDog. Alan really put me on the spot in terms of deciding that I could be one of the volunteers for Petchaflicker. Technically, Greg put me on the spot, but I'm going to forgive him for that one since I work with him and I had a sneaking suspicion that I was going to get volunteered for that one. So working on the Petchaflicker, doing that completely live performance with all improv was fun. And I really loved the reminder from Alan that we're talking about stories. That everything we do is a story. We are presenting things, we're sharing things, we're trying to get stuff across to students, and why not structure it a story? That really resonated with me, partially because the last time I did a master's degree, my thesis was really on history and how people write and how their stories are told. So I've done some studies of the fact that we tend to write things as stories. History becomes a story with a beginning, middle, and end, not just separate events that aren't linked together whatsoever. We always tell our lives as stories. So why not tell more information as stories? Why not structure lessons as stories and give students that feeling of things changing? I really like that idea, and that was something that I really want to bring into my own work more. Moreover, I happen to like writing stories. It's something I do for fun with my husband, so I really felt that resonated with me as the idea that I can be a storyteller. Now, failure is something that oddly enough came up a lot for me this semester. It might be just a timely thing. I know more and more people are writing about failure. What does that mean? How does it fit into education? So thinking about failure has been a big deal for me. I've talked about failing out in the open, but I also wanted to think about how failure can work for us, whether or not it does. So this chance to really think about failure in a situation where I can potentially fail was good for me. I really appreciated this chance to sort of talk with other people about failing, about what it means to fail, because to me, failing is not necessarily a bad thing, and maybe fail isn't even the right word. But talking to other people and getting another opinion, okay, am I crazy? Does this make sense? I've really appreciated that ability to check out what my ideas are and how do they work, and really reflect on how I'm thinking about things. Now, the chance to meet David Wiley, even virtually, was awesome. I have referenced him in a paper and it was in a presentation, so it was great to actually get to hear him speak and pick his brain and ask him questions. His involvement in the open education resources movement, open education, is something that I really want to aspire to. I love the idea that we should share what we do. It's something Alec is really known for talking about, and I know he has talked about it a lot with our class, and that has been great. David Wiley, it was cool to actually get to hear somebody I've quoted in a presentation who I otherwise would never meet. So I had a bit of an academic fangirl moment listening to him, but at the same time, hearing his ideas was fascinating. The idea that somebody could actually come up with something that would make me think badges could work. I'm a skeptic on badges. I'm not sure that I can totally buy into this concept, but the idea of degreed really made sense to me. I could see that being a direction for education. His talking about Lumen Learning and about ways of getting open education resources into the mainstream definitely works for me. I'm totally behind that. Actually, I've made a commitment to be more open. So I myself am willing to commit to resources that I develop, that I own. I'm going to try and share them. I'm going to be more open about what I'm doing. I'm going to be more open about how I'm doing it, and I'm going to be more open about sharing what I'm doing with them. Which means that becoming more familiar with Creative Commons was really good. I'm not always great about doing things in a Creative Commons way. I've been trying a lot, but sometimes I forget to check that box. So it's been a good chance to really understand what the different licenses mean, how I can use them, how I can find materials, and how I can share them so that I can contribute to OER. I think that's something that we as educators really are needing to do more of. We need to get our ideas out there so that we can build a repository for others. Our community, like it says on the screen right here, a global community is way more useful than a tiny little community. We aren't limited by location anymore, so the more we can share, the better. And in sharing, we can make these resources available for people who don't have the same access. Making them accessible is an issue, but I hope that's something that we can work on more. So, in short, that's me talking for almost 15 minutes about my summary of learning. This has really been how I've learned this class. This has been the stuff that I am most happy to take with me moving forward. And I know there will be more things that I reflect back on later and think, oh my gosh, we talked about that. That was brilliant. It's one of those things you never know what's going to go with you later. But for right now, at this point in my education, these are the things that I most appreciate from this class and that I've learned the most from. So thank you to all my fellow students in ECNI 831. Thanks to Alec and all our guest speakers. So here's to you. It's been great learning with you.